victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Penasini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold him!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just bring in the big fella. There we go. Hello, my name is John, also known as 4020. Welcome to a live edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. It is Tuesday night. That means it's teamless. That means it's NRL and news around the code. And joining me to break down all of the happenings in our great sport is my good mate Sixties, also known as Craig. Big fella, glad of you to be back on time for the start of the show. We had a bit of a domestic issue in the house there, but thankfully it looks like it's okay.
Yes, yeah. No, it's not. It wasn't a domestic argument.
Well, no, sorry, yeah. A utility issue, sorry, rather than a domestic issue.
A utility issue,
yes.
yeah. Looked like some leaking water happening somewhere, but no, all good.
Whew.
So,
We'll take those.
Yeah, ready to go, John. And of course, welcome to everyone that's tuned in at the moment. We'll run through who's there in chat, but as always, thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, the OG of sponsors for the tip sheet, and of course to the home of the Eels, Parra Leagues, for their extended sponsorship, which involves our regular appearances there in Sturlos on match days. And we'll be back there for the clash against, I'm just trying to think, it's in 2 weeks' time, isn't it, John?
So we play Souths at Allianz this week, and then we head back there against the Roosters. That's
the Roosters, that's
same time slot the following week.
Then we wind up with the Knights.
Yeah, we go across the ditch to New Zealand, and then we finish up at Combank against Newcastle. Agreed.
That's it. So, much appreciated the support that we get from Star Partners and from Parra Leagues. Also, a reminder, no matter what platform that you're watching this on or listening to us on, if you can give it a like and subscribe. We had some really huge numbers in the last fortnight to our podcasts. The news podcast last week, I think it was heading towards, last I saw, about 1.8K on YouTube. And so probably well over 2,000 across all the platforms. And our instant reaction, I think, just on Sunday, just gone, again, well over the 1,000 mark on YouTube, which is fantastic. We'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers. So we know we got the people watching on YouTube. If you can give it a like and subscribe, that would be even better. And much appreciated by us there. It just helps with all those metrics.
Chris asked us what other platforms are on. So YouTube is obviously now the primary platform, but SoundCloud is our distribution platform for the podcast, which hooks it up to iTunes, Spotify. I'm not sure if it's on other podcasting platforms. I did something about that a while back, but I'm not sure if it's still linked up. So they're the four main there, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and then I'm sure there are some other things out there as well.
Yes, so again, we appreciate all of that, because as the more that we get our content out there to fellow Eels supporters, it's that then it regenerates itself, and it means that we can reach more ears and eyes of fellow Parramatta supporters. So we appreciate that. Who have we got there in chat this week at the moment, John?
See plenty of regulars in there. Rugby League History just commented, South Sydney, our ultimate bogey side. Yeah, we've had some bad run-ins of them. We'll talk about them obviously more in a little bit. But I see Neil Ross, Chris Hill, Joel's there celebrating the win on the weekend. Yes, it was a good one, wasn't it? Matty Butcher, Michael Formosa, Shano. We got the other Chris as well. Got multiple Chris's in chat. We got Philip. Good to see you, mate. Jamie Sinkers, Mike Fleet. Good to see you, Mike. So plenty of regulars there. Ben Johnson on the roids. I think I saw it in chat before. Getting all juiced up, mate. So plenty of regulars
down in his bums, John. Anyone that saw the roast tape on Todd Payton's press conference would know what I'm
down
randomly referring to there.
Yeah, Chris, you're other Chris, I suppose, because Chris Hill has the qualifying surname there. even though we still love you, mate. Chris and other Chris, I'm sorry.
But if you haven't seen the roasts, NRL roasts response to Todd Payton's press conference, do yourself a favour, to quote Molly Meldrum, and go and check it out, because it's classic. Good use of Will Ferrell.
Yes.
From what was it, Eastbound and Down?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, John, I think we're probably ready for the stinger.
Yeah, no messing around. Let's get right into the news.
News team, assemble!
Now, John, let's kick things off.
I'm
with
looking at the run
media
sheet.
attention.
I got some choice words for this one. It's a good run sheet.
Yeah. The media's attention that's been put on the spray that Mitch Moses gave to Talon De Silva following his 5 to 10 minutes of head-scratching dummy half play.
It was, look, let's not sugarcoat it. It was a rough run for Talon. That was some of the worst football he's probably ever played in the NRL. And his captain and halfback did not hold back and let him know about it either. And that's been the focus of this intense discussion, isn't it? Did Mitchell Moses cross lines? Does Talon Silva still want to be a Parramatta Eel? Did he leave the West Tigers just to get roasted by his halfback? There's been people on both sides of this divide, Craig. And one thing that immediately stands out is you can tell who has played a competitive team sport and who hasn't by the nature of their comments. You don't even have to have been at an elite level, at a professional level, at a semi-professional level. You can just tell who has played team sports in a competitive setting and actually wants to go out there and win a game versus those that have sat there and been armchair coaches and never been involved in something like that. Getting a bake like that for when you screw up that bad, that is part and parcel of the game, baby. That when you screw up like that, you want your captain pulling you up because you want to be winning the game, especially at the NRL level, Craig. Especially at the NRL level, where you've got teams desperate to avoid wooden spoons, desperate to make the finals, desperate to build for a premiership down the road. If your captain's not holding you to those levels of accountability, then you're never going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely true. And of course, it made for interesting social media interaction between De Silva and Moses on Moses' social media, where Talon posted clutch, then hashtag still friends. And Moses replied with love me little mate.
And the people that tried to psychoanalyze that stuff was hilarious too. It was just literally a harmless interaction between teammates that have put it behind themselves. And look, if Talon De Silva does that week in and week out for the next 3 games, then I'm sure that maybe it's going to escalate into something more than just getting baked on the field a little bit. But the reality is he made a couple of mistakes, rough mistakes in the game. Moses baked him. Moses has baked plenty of players. Everyone remembers the infamous Kenny Edwards one where Kenny was taking too long to play the ball, and you just hear from the sideline mics, "Get up, see you next Tuesday." And that is part of the DNA of Mitchell Moses. He wants to win, and look, storming a teacup, much ado about nothing. And again, the separation of the people who have been there and done that, even at a very small level, like park football, and want to go out there and win on Saturday and Sunday, and those that have not been part of that, because anyone that's embarrassed or mortified on behalf of Talon De Silva, they're pulling the wrong lever there.
Well, the question I'd ask any Eels supporter that wasn't happy about it was, do you want the Eels players to hold themselves and each other accountable for their performances? And I think we know.
I'm not sure what happened to Jamie's message. It's been retracted, but he made a great point. Everyone loves Craig Bellamy losing his mind and how it elevates the Melbourne Storm. How's that any different from Mitchell Moses doing something similar? He's holding his players accountable. He wants them to be at a better level of play. So, absolutely.
See,
so Michael Formosa with the important qualifying statement. As a former Grey Stain Devils Division 4 player, I don't have a problem with it. Exactly. There you go. We've caught in the heavyweights, the big guns on that one. Yeah, and Prince, I agree. Nicolucci was worse with singling out Talon De Silva for milking. And don't get me wrong, Talon did. That's a separate argument there, Craig. But Talon absolutely milked that tackle, the high shot. But there were 2 high shots in the same tackle, and the referee and the bunker missed it. And that's part of a broader discussion about whether players should stay down for penalties or not, when the real discussion should be about why the official's missing these obvious calls. So I agree, Prince. I thought that was a really lame article from Nicolucci there.
Yeah. And you can see where it's trying to generate a bit of clickbait with something like that. So, John, I think we're probably ready to get into Team List Tuesday, because there's an interesting Eels name on the reserve list, and conversely, there's an interesting name that's been left off all the lists this week.
Yes. Sorry. Jamie got auto-moderated here. I'm not sure why. If your comments getting deleted, it's not me. It is YouTube's automated moderating. So let me have a poke at that and see what I can find later on. But yeah, let's go to Team List Tuesday, mate. And we go through. We have 5 grades in action. Of course, we start with the NRL, and it is an unchanged 17, right? It is, yes. And yeah, missing from the 22 is that of Bailey Simonson, the name of Bailey Simonson. But we have Joash Papali at fullback, Zach Lomax and Josh Adokar on the wings. Will Penasini named in his customary number 3. This time Dylan Brown gets the 4 instead of the 22. Officially confirmed at centre this week. Dean Hawkins and Mitchell Moses will work in tandem as the starting halves. Your front rowers Hopgood, Smith and Barlaw of the Jermaine Rowley and junior variety. Got Charlie Geimer, Jack Williams and Dylan Walker rounding out the back row. Talon De Silva not getting dropped as there were some fans banging for that rough passage of play. Luca Moretti, Matt Dury and Kelvin Tuolangi are your rotation players. Extend the roster, Jordan Samrani, Dan Keir, Hayes Dunster. I'll skip this player first, but they got Tony Mattaielli. But in the 21, Isaiah Iongi. And there was a bit of speculation going through last week, I think, about Isaiah maybe coming back a week early on the time frame for his broken hand. Not confirmed yet, mate. Not confirmed. But the fact that he's in the 22 and giving Jason Ryles the option to elevate him at some point down the track ahead of Saturday, it can only fuel speculation that he's ready to come back, can't it?
Well, people who attended the 10-year member event would know that he was telling people that his goal was to be back for the South game. So it would appear that he's on track at this stage for that. No doubt there's probably going to be medical clearances and
he's going to have to have that hand confirmed to be fine to go. And look, the worst thing we could do is bring him back a week early, get his hand like re-broken and then rub him out for his preseason. So I would want to hope, and I'm sure they will, that the club rubber stamps the right medical procedures to get him back or hold him back.
Yeah, and John, can we jump into the New South Wales Cup team list now before we hit the NRLW? Because, again, as we mentioned, no Bailey Simonson name.
Yes, and there was an article today, I think it just came out before we went live, I think that the Eels have agreed to give Bailey Simonson permission to look at opportunities elsewhere, and he's been given a leave of absence, extended leave of absence on the basis of that. So the back line, we start with the fullback, and probably the player of the match last week, or at least the player that was ultimately the difference, Arpa Twiddle, a fullback for the Eels in the reserve grade competition 60s, kicked 2 clutch conversions, a try and a penalty conversion to get the Eels home against the Bears. He's joined the back line by Jake Tungor and Hayes Dunster on the flank. So Raz Nanva and Richie Penasini round out a very young centre pairing. In the halves, speaking of youth, Lorenzo Talatona, he'll work alongside Ronald Volkman. Woody Gregg, Joey Lossick and Tony Mattaielli, your starting front rowers. Tyrese Lakini, Jordan Samrani and Dan Keir, your starting back rowers. No Saxon Pryke this week, Craig, unfortunately, as we got clarity from Chris in chat in the instant reaction. I think he's done his ankle or a lower leg injury of some serious capacity. Not listed on the injury report, unfortunately, but out of action, I imagine, for the remainder of the season. But on the interchange, Manny Luke, Brock Parker, another young gunner, Josiah Funa-Ayuta, and then a backline utility in Samuel Luizu.
Yeah, interesting. John, we can't ask for more than what the New South Wales Cup team has been doing all season, which is they fight for 80 minutes and they've managed to find a win some weeks where you think the odds are stacked against them too much, but they eke it out. Now, they probably weren't at their best on the weekend against a Bears team that provided more of a challenge than they were expecting. And the Eels were down 30-24 with only about 3 or 4 minutes left, managed to score in the corner. You had Arpa kick a conversion from the sideline under pressure to level the scores, and then after the final siren, kick a penalty goal from 40 metres out, about 10, 12 metres in from touch, and nails it for the victory. So they do have a very, very tough assignment this week. So we'll see how they go. It's we know they're going to play finals football.
That's confirmed now, yeah, exactly. So
which is confirmed.
The big question mark is the configuration of the team with the young players they've got in there, guys like Lorenzo and whatnot. I think it's a given that Arpatuato is going to be the fullback now. He's been there for the vast majority of the season, done a fantastic job. But that halves configuration is really intriguing, and where they go with that, and how much leeway they give someone like Lorenzo to develop ahead of the finals, or with Dean Hawkins maybe coming back to the grade. Do they pivot that way? It's going to be very, very interesting.
Well, John, it becomes interesting when you think if they were to play Isaiah Iongi this week in the NRL, if he goes back to fullback, what happens with Joash? Does he then go back into the halves replacing Dean Hawkins? Do they look at him in a centre position with taking that spot from Dylan Brown?
Yeah.
Do they put him onto the interchange, and Talon De Silva pays the penalty for his performance last week? It's that's interesting. Then if he does take the place of Dean Hawkins, if Dean Hawkins comes back to New South Wales Cup, what does that mean?
There's some serious things cards, dominoes, how you want to phrase it, whatever euphemism you want to use, pieces to be moved around, aren't there? Hypothetically, with just one player returning in Isaiah Iongi, there could be a genuine cascade of players going back through the grades from NRL to Cup, from Cup to Flegg, and that could really impact how those two teams below the NRL look.
Which is why I wanted to go straight from the NRL into New South Wales Cup team list, and I'll put it to our chat there as well. What would they do if Isaiah Iongi is actually fit to play this week? Are there any comments on that at the moment, John?
We're having a chat about Arpatuato and then where he came from. And just for clarity, for those that didn't see my comment in chat, Arpa joined the Eels from Queensland via New Zealand. We've got Jamie saying dropping Hawkins seems the path of least resistance. That is the option I chose in my team list post as well, Jamie, where given Riles' pragmatic tendencies, or at least what he's displayed this year and obviously last year too in the preseason, I think you would want to see Joash partnering Mitchell Moses and have some tape to work with in that regard. But geez, you'd be hard pressed to drop Dean Hawkins, wouldn't you, with the phenomenal job he's done for the Eels. But again, Riles, very pragmatic. He's thinking about 2026 and results in the future, and results that build you towards a premiership. And I think that's why I would lean towards Josh in 6. Joel agrees, Josh into the 6. Ben Johnson, Josh the 5/8. Michael Formosa, Josh the 6. Footy Dean out. Footy dead. Footy Dean out. Matthias saying Josh has to go 6. Carl saying have to play Josh at 6. There we go. So a real consensus in chat. Put Josh into that 5/8 role. Bring Isaiah back into fullback, obviously. And then Footy Dean, I suppose Footy Dean back to reserve grade, and you keep Talon on the interchange because you want that 2 dummy half rotation. And that, I suppose that you're talking about looking at getting tape. You want to see more of that experiment about Riley Smith playing outside of dummy half in that small ball lock forward role.
The interesting thing is without Footy Dean, the Fox doesn't get that try that he got on the weekend.
The Footy Dean, there was that pass, which was a great catch and release pass, and there was the one against Manly where he went to his knees on the line break and just ripped a 20-metre cutout pass across to his right. He's made some insane footy plays. So, like I said, hard-pressed to drop Footy Dean, but I do agree with Chad. I do agree with projected Jason Riles' behaviour in his pragmatic approach, that I think that Josh the 6 is probably the best, maybe not the fairest, but the best answer to that problem.
Yeah. And I think I reckon it's a 50-50 call on which decision is better for getting the win this coming week. And given that we're playing the Rabbitohs, which is Footy Dean's old club, it would have been a good
Phillips in a court there
him.
saying, keep Hawkins in the play against his former team. That often is a little bit of extra juice on top. You see players rise to the occasion against their former employers. And, I don't think there's any hard feelings between Dean Hawkins and Rabbitohs. And I think, if anything, he has a great deal of affection for him, being a childhood club and the club that he built his entire career to prior to joining the Parramatta Eels. But, yeah, could have added a bit of extra spice. I mean, not saying he's not going to play. It would add a bit of extra spice there.
Yep. So, John, the NRLW team.
Yes, the Eels, unfortunately, they can't go a week without an injury, Craig. And while they do get 2 players back this week, they lose one in Tyler Amiatu, who has done her shoulder. We saw her depart the field nursing that shoulder, and unfortunately, there is no timeline beyond it being a season-ending injury. So I don't know if it's 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. But the young forward gets back into the NRLW only to get injured in her return game, and that's really unfortunate. But the NRLW do have 2 reinforcements in the form of Kennedy Charrington and Boss Kapoor, which means they look like this. Abby Church is the fullback. You got Zoe Fay, Martha Matteoli, Fleur Ginn, and Lindsay Tui rounding out an unchanged backline. Rosemary Beckett will work with Rachel Pearson in the halves once again. Elsie Arbert, Ruben Charrington, and Brianna Eels, who are all in good touch against the Cowboys, are your starting front row. Then you've got Boss Kapoor taking over on the edge. I believe that'll be the right edge. Mahalia Murphy down the left, who is also the captain. Kennedy Charrington returns to reclaim her starting lock forward position. Interchange has also been adjusted in light of that Amiatu injury. And also the returns of Kennedy and Boss. You've got Tanika Todd Hunter, Paige Travis, Rivoli Arlaw getting bumped from starting lock for the first time this year, I think, back to the interchange. And Chloe Jackson is also there rounding out the rotation forwards. Tess McWilliams, Mia Middleton, Ruby Jean Kennard Ellis, Chelsea Makira, and Yasmin Baker, the extended reserves. And they play on Saturday afternoon up at Suncorp Stadium, taking on the Brisbane Broncos. That's a tough one, mate. Going to have to be playing better football than what we've seen from them in the last couple of weeks. Going to need some of their core players, some of their senior players standing up big time.
Yeah, Steve Georgalis in his presser said it was a really disappointing performance against the Cowboys to get from surrendering a 10-point lead to not executing as they needed to, and especially to drop the points at home to a team that's in a similar position to them on the ladder. Well, certainly competing at that same level on the ladder. It was a loss that they couldn't afford to have. Now the Eels have risen to the occasion in the past. They'll really need to this week. We'll talk about it more in the preview, but it was a disappointing loss, and it was a shame too, because whilst there wasn't a huge crowd that stayed back to watch them at CommBank Stadium, the crowd really did get behind him. The Parra chant was going a number of times during the game. I would have said that there was probably, if you compared the crowd that was still in the stadium, and it's always hard in a 30,000 seat stadium to judge how many would have been there, I would have said there was maybe 2,000 to 2,500 people that were still in the stadium, and quite a few obviously still in the corporate area as well, because they had that catered for a double header. So there was a number of people that were still there. I would have said they were playing in front of a crowd that was probably double their normal size that they get. It was just disappointing to have a home game and just, drop in those sort of circumstances. We really, really desperately need Rachel Pearson to find some form.
Yep, there's no doubt about it, mate. The Eels need their senior figure in the halves to step up, especially with Cassie Toihiku out of action. Not to take anything away from Rosemary Beckett, who is a talented young half or playmaker, but Rachel Pearson, it's her team, right? She needs to take control, needs to find a bit of consistency of her play options as well as her kicking game, and they're going to need both those parts of her game to be at their very best if they're going to upset the Brisbane Broncos. Yep.
Now there's been a few changes to the Jersey Flegg team as named, John.
Yes, Eels, and we have to assume that it's injury or suspension of play, because I can't really imagine the likes of Will Lewis getting dropped, Craig. But going through the Flegg team, who had that fantastic comeback victory against Melbourne Storm, they do have a couple of changes. Yeti Samuelu and Will Lewis are out, which means that you've got Corey Lee reprising his role at fullback. Eels 5 or 6 deep at fullback right now, kind of crazy. Larima Rokasuka and Muhammad Al-Madin are your starting wingers. Dom Destratus reprises his role in the centres. Lewis out is replaced by Dakota Kakoi. Matty Hunter and Josh Lynn are your starting halves. Bo Lucian, Paddy Spence, Ryder Talangi is a really solid front row of a couple of young bookends there in Bo and Ryder. Trace Beattie, still in the 20, had a fantastic game on the weekend. He'll be on one edge. Chris Petrus with the game winner on the other. Max Popo, that Tyrus lock forward, also from the SG ball class. Plenty of him in this team. Rounds out that
John,
starting pack.
Apart from Paddy Spence,
It is
that's
an all SG
ball.
ball starting pack, which is and it's kind of crazy when you consider how good they're playing as well. And the players, I mean, there's also another SG ball player in the starting, or not starting in the New South Wales Cup, but from that starting pack a couple of weeks ago, playing in the New South Wales Cup in Josiah Finarayuta. So it's a very good crop of kids.
Yep, and sorry for interrupting.
That's okay. It was a great point. You got Raf Destratus, Dom's twin brother, sliding that interchange rotation. Lockie Koinakis is the dummy half on the bench. Damascus Nemia and Javan Stevenson Hull round out the big boys in rotation. Javan taking over from Ieti Samuelu again. Don't know if it's injury or suspension. Ieti scored the try to get him back into the league, Craig. So I can't imagine that's a drop. It would be injury or suspension. And then Isaac Jim is your 18th man or 26th man, whatever jersey he's going to wear. It's big enough for him. So the Eels, with a couple of changes there, they play at 1 o'clock, Kellyville Park, taking on the Cronulla Sharks. It's another. They knocked off the first place Melbourne Storm, and they go from that into the second place Cronulla Sharks. So they're getting a fantastic tune-up ahead of the finals, Craig. You could not ask for a better hit-out in terms of the form teams of the competition than going Melbourne, Cronulla. And then I think they've got another game in hand against another top 6 team as well. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they
got Melbourne again.
They got Melbourne again. There you go. They go down to Melbourne, yeah. So if the Eels win out, they've got a great chance of finishing 2 or 3. And I'm not sure what that changes for their seedings in the finals in terms of a second bite or a week off. But yeah,
it's a top 5.
It's a top 5, so only Melbourne will get the week off then, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be ready for the finals one way or the other. They're playing Melbourne, Cronulla. Yeah, they're going to be ready.
Yeah. So, John, that then brings us to, and I should mention that's a double header
at Kellyville
Park
yes,
Saturday. So
correct.
it's the what is it, 1 and 3?
1 and 3, correct.
So, and in fact, it's a big Saturday in terms of the Eels because every one of those games is on Saturday. And speaking of another game that's on Saturday, the Harvey Norman team, fresh off squeaking out a win against
their sister club,
winless,
20-18. Yeah, they got the job done by the barest of margins. No, not the barest, the near barest of margins. 1 point would have been the barest, but they got it done. They've got, I say changes. Some of these changes were actually had taken place in the pre-game shake-up for the team on Monday, and I think they're just being confirmed. Dallas Graham-Wivell has come into the team in official capacity. She was actually in the team on Monday night. She played wing. Now officially confirmed in the wing this week with Ella Carlisle, the fullback. Opposite winger is Caitlin Pearden. Tamira Liardi, one of our pathway players from a couple of years back, is in the centres. Kiana Takarangi will partner her opposite side of the field. Matisse Bettridge and Elias Sufan, the starting halves. Taylor Falanico, Chelsea McKira, Ruby Jean Kennard Ellis, the 8, 9 and 10. Josephine Lanaz has moved from the centres to the back row on the edge. She'll work opposite of Fontaine Tafua. Jess Kennedy is the captain and lock forward. Extended roster, interchange roster, Ashley Pottinger, Collier Gray, Alana O'Loughlin, Liana Dimmick, and then Matosha Kalepo, the 18th player or the concussion substitute. So they play at 11:30 a.m. out at Redfern Oval. I think there's also Ironbark these days. I can't keep up with the names, but they'll be playing, that slot ahead of the Jersey Flegg. So if you've got time, you've got a triple header that you can catch on Bar TV, on TCT, or if you're crazy enough, I suppose, jetting around Sydney.
Yeah, then John, that win to the Harvey Norman women's team, for a start, it features one of the best individual tries that you'd see to Carlisle from fullback. I don't know if you have seen that as yet, but the kick was put through to her. She sort of bobbed and weaved through traffic and then found clear passage, and we've spoken about her pace before. Yeah. She just burnt the turf from about around the halfway mark where they couldn't get near her. As soon as she had that open passage between herself and the try line, there was no one going to catch her. But it was just the way that she avoided the defenders and changed direction, accelerated, weaved, accelerated again. It was probably going to be close to the try of the year in the Harvey Norman women's premiership.
At least individual try of the year, yeah.
Yeah, at least individual try. It was they almost paid the price because the Eels had just got a turnover possession with barely 3 minutes to go, and one of the players, I can't remember who, gave the ref a gobful.
I saw the. Hang on, I saw the report. It was Tamira Liardi.
Yeah, and
can't be doing that.
No, and the ref immediately blew play up, awarded a penalty against the Eels in possession. And the Eels, as I said, it was only about 3 minutes to go. They were about 25 metres out from the Wenty line. Wenty go downfield and score a try in the corner. The conversion is missed. There's a 2-point ball game. And fortunately, the Eels held on.
Chris pointed out in chat that there were sisters playing against each other last night, which I believe is Claire and Jess Kennedy, looking at the two lineups. I didn't realise they were related. But that's a great little subtext to that game, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. John, the injury updates that the Eels put out, was there anything that was news in amongst that?
Yeah, again, we didn't have any confirmation or clarity on what happened to Saxon Pryke. We're only going off what we saw in the game. He was carted off with what we suspect was an ankle injury, not part of the official report, which means that there are no additions to the official NRL injury report. Kitione Katonga is speculatively due back around 27 now, so I don't know if they'll play him. Meanwhile, Sean Russell still 3 to 4 weeks off. I still think that'll be his season. And then Sam Tuivasa knee MCL being pushed to next season on the official designation for the NRLW. They still had Boss Kapua linked on there, which is incorrect because she's been named in the starting team, which means Tyler Amiatu's shoulder season, Cassie Toihiku syndesmosis, and then Roy Owen fractured fibula and syndesmosis. They're both TBC, but you can probably put a line for them, Craig, unfortunately. Syndesmosis at the smallest end of the scale tends to be 4 to 6 weeks. And then given what we saw of Cassie and Rory, where Rory had a broken leg as well, they're probably going to be at least mid-grade syndesmosis injuries, which will put you in the bracket of 8 weeks. Really, really unfortunate.
You're not really going to speed up the healing time of a bone injury, and certainly not significantly, which means
you can mainline as much milk as you want. There's only so much the bone can do to heal. And some people obviously heal faster and can be back a week or two earlier, but again, you're not going to be, with those injuries, you can't rush them back because they're just prone to being re-hurt.
Yeah, and I mentioned that because Sean Russell, he's got the broken hand. There's only 4 games left in the season.
Chris saying Saxon will be gone for the season. Yeah, the nature of that injury points towards, unfortunately, a pretty healthy stint on the sidelines, and hopefully there's no long-term damage to him, and hopefully he can come back for the preseason. Because that's the big mark of him now is getting that foot or leg healed and then getting back in time to be fit for the preseason.
And I guess it comes down to, with someone like Gideon, if he's going to be back for the last game of the season, what are they trying to achieve with coming back for one game? He'd have to be really confident that the medicos would have to be very confident as well. That
if he was good to go, obviously you'd want to see him in a full strength lineup with Moses, assuming Joash plays, Joash on that left edge, and then Iongi at fullback. But yeah, by the same token, you're not going to rush him back. And if he's got any degree of doubt about his availability, then you put him on ice and you just play someone else.
Yep. So have we got any questions about the Eels news from our gallery there?
We got a bit of appreciation from Chris Hill for Ruben Cherrington. She's had a good season. Some speculation again about recruitment and whether the Eels might be interested in someone like, I just saw his name. God, I'm having Jonah Pezzett. So I don't know, it'd be interesting. After that, Josh Randall's team, ARPA. There was a bit of love for ARPA in chat about whether he can be converted into a backline utility or a centre. I honestly think that might be his calling for the Parramatta Eels, Craig. He might be their 6-man in the backline that can cover from wing through to even 5'8", and be maybe the next man up across a few positions.
That would almost make him like the Storm's.
Wishart?
What's his name?
Wishart? Meany?
No. What's his name? I've got a mental blank. His father's the State of Origin player. Wishart. Yeah. Like, because he was playing virtually every backline position before, and then it ended up being that he could play dummy half as well. I would suggest that Arpa could play any backline position.
Yeah,
he can play in the halves. He can play centre. He can play on the wing. He obviously can play fullback. He would be Mr. Utility on the bench, and I would suggest he'd be the sort of player that could probably jump in and do a job at lock, because I think he's got the physicality that he could do that as well. And besides which, you talk about physicality. I don't think you need to be a big body now to be playing lock. We saw Riley Smith going to that utility lock position when Talon De Silva was on the field, and the two of them were out there together. And if people were wondering, how does Riles intend to make this work going forward with two players that are considered to be promising dummy halves? Excuse me. That would be, I think he's just telegraphed that in the round just gone. So, anything else there, John?
No, some more speculation about who's available. Some talk about Sandon Smith, who I believe has been linked to the Canberra Raiders. I don't know if that's I don't think it's in our NRL news slot. But yeah, Ricky Stewart had been rumoured to be wanting an experienced option in the halves to have replacing, not necessarily directly replacing Fogarty that's going to Manly, but to having competition of not so much Ethan Strange, but Ethan Sanders, I guess. Strange is an established rising star in the NRL at this point. But yeah, I think there was some talk that the Eels were offered Sandon Smith at one point, and I think the Eels made a conscious decision to back their internal talent over the recruitment of Sandon, which is not so much an indictment on Sandon, but more maybe a vote of confidence in what the Eels have in their internal stocks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which direction that goes in, because you've got Lorenzo, who has effectively jumped 2 grades.
Kind of crazy, yeah.
And will no doubt do a pre-season, an NRL pre-season. So who knows where he's headed in 2026. You don't want to rush players like that. But when you look at the accelerated development that they've already pushed with him, you have to wonder how soon is now. That's literally it's almost like he's placed himself on the cusp of making an NRL debut or featuring in some capacity in 2026. So I guess watch this space. And then, of course, you've got Dean Hawkins, who's doing a job at 5'8" at the moment. You've got Ronnie Volkman, who can play 5'8". And you've obviously got the plan that Riles has for Joash Papali to be the 5'8" next season. So, and that's if you don't want to figure Arpa Twiddle into any of those calculations. So, interesting times. John, if there's no more questions, I guess it's time for your musical interlude.
Yeah, we'll take more questions at the end of the NRL talk anyway. So if anyone's got some good ones in the oven cooking, let them bake through proper, and we'll talk about them later. Yeah, intermission time, Craig. Again, turning my eyes to immediate inspiration this week, and I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but I've heard good things, and thank God they're good things, because when you sort of do a remake, or however you want to call it, it's not a reboot, but like a soft sequel of one of the comedy goats in terms of cinema, you want to make sure you get it right. And by all accounts, Liam Neeson has done a great job stepping in for Leslie Nielsen in the Naked Gun, like I said, remake, however you want to phrase it. And yeah, so on that sort of light, we'll go with a bit of our Naked Gun theme this week. Bit of swingy jazz there, yep. Police Squad, baby. Don't call me Shirley, indeed. Yes, I mean, that aeroplane and all those sort of like, straight face slapdash comedies are some of the funniest stuff you can ever see. And some of the writing just makes you like blink and you have to like go back and see how many layers of comedy there are to it because of how sharp and how razor focused it is.
John, it's interesting, isn't it? Leslie Nielsen, Liam Neeson.
I know. We can't get Leslie Nielsen. Find me the best damn replacement. Yeah, we'll go with Liam Neeson from Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
Both, coming into those roles far more known. Obviously, Liam's been typecast into the gruff badass after the Taken stuff, but very, straight man actors, super serious, which is why they're perfect fits for that kind of role. And, by all accounts, Liam Neeson does a great job. So I'm really looking forward to getting that, catching out that one in the cinemas at some point.
John, I'm champing at the bit. I'm champing at the bit to go and see it. But when there was an ad for it on earlier tonight, and Yoko informed me that there was no way on God's green earth that she was going to see The Naked Gun at a cinema.
Boo.
Boo. Where's the sense of humour? It's sadly lacking.
Peter, do you speak jive, Craig? The old lady on the airplane that spoke fluent jive. Yep. It's so quotable, isn't it? Just there's people in chat popping off. Nice beaver. Thanks at it stuff last week. Yeah, Ben, that was a classic one with the lady going up to the attic. Oh my goodness, yeah. Just really, really good comedy, and I'm glad that they didn't butcher the follow up to it. So well done.
Yes. So, John, this is the second week of the Indigenous round, so we can expect to see some more great jerseys being trotted out by teams this week. But let's jump into Trainergate 2.0 because it really, it's featured a little bit in the media, but nowhere near what it should.
We're getting an off-season review. Hooray.
What on earth constitutes a mutual infringement? Now, I know it's where they say fault can't be attributed to anyone in particular.
Such piss poor terminology for that, isn't it?
And so according to the call that's made where there's no one at fault, it simply goes back to the previous play the ball. Now, I don't know how you can say no one's at fault. Didn't the Cowboys player release the ball? And didn't a Cowboys trainer make contact with the ball? So
how the Parramatta Eels anyway at fault and how the Cowboys not at fault, exactly.
And how in this instance, when it's made contact with the trainer and you've got Josh Addo-Carr within cooey of the ball, ready to chase after it and arguably win a race to the ball. We saw him win a race under tougher circumstances earlier in the night, just whizzing past defenders to claim the ball and score the try. He was going to be in a similar situation to that here. He's a wake up to that ball going free. So somehow, when the balls come from a Cowboys player's hand and it struck a Cowboys trainer and it's prevented a possible try, maybe a likely try, they get to keep the ball. It's ridiculous. It's as ridiculous as the challenges that we saw over the weekend. It was. There is so much at the moment that feels that it's wrong with the NRL and its rules and the officiating. Look, I think in a lot of instances, the poor officiating comes down to rules that are set for match officials to follow that are just, they set the stage for failure, for officiating failure. And in that instance, it's not the match official's fault. We did see some that was well and truly match official's fault over the weekend, especially, and we're mainly concerned about Parramatta because this is a Parramatta podcast. But, John, we saw some diabolical refereeing this weekend, absolutely diabolical refereeing. And I'm not sure where to begin about some of these rules that are absolutely stuffing everyone up. I mean, the not being able to tackle a player in a a try scoring situation, that's one of the most absurd rules that was ever introduced, because I think everyone is concerned about player safety, but if a player is going to accidentally in a contest for the ball or in tackling the player, put a player into an awkward situation, that's no different to if it happens in normal play where tackles do go wrong. It's just part of the contact nature of rugby league. The sooner they wind that rule back, the better. I bet they won't, but the sooner they wind that back, the better. You know how I felt about the six again.
I mean,
all
and
years.
Chat is very fired up about this. I can see a number of incidents being cited. Cohen Hess, I know it was a multiplicative charge for prior incidents, but he got a 3-week ban for the cannonball tackle and Josh Papali. And I appreciate that Hess was immediately apologetic. Like he knew he messed up. He knew he'd done it wrong. And he got up, and the Eels players didn't try to escalate because of that. But that has been a sin bin all year, unless it's the Parramatta Eels, I guess. And another one, again, who was it? Was it Kicks? Or was it no, Jamie? Jamie, this is my big bugbear too, mate, was that Mitchell Moses clarified with Liam Kennedy what the penalty was on Riley Smith for when Jason Taumalolo had the ball fly out from the ruck. He went out there, he clarified, he made sure that it was for an explicit call, which was a strip call, because Riley was adamant he did not strip the ball. And then the bunker under Klein changed the paradigms of the challenge, that it was crowding the ruck. And look, I don't think it was crowding the ruck in the first place. I think that was a really asinine call regardless. But even if it was crowding the ruck and the Cowboys still got the penalty, the Eels should have retained their challenge because they challenged successfully. It wasn't a strip. And yet they're making the rules up as they go. And that is a huge part of the issue, is that when it goes to the bunker, the whole point of the bunker was consistency, and that you would get the same interpretation, the same call, the same deliberation process across all 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it is, in a week because of buys. And we're not getting it. And it's not just a Parramatta problem. Like, obviously we have the blue and gold goggles on, but you watch as a neutral. And I mean, we saw in that Redcliffe Roosters game where there was that big, it was a brouhaha, it was a push and shove. And there was a couple of clear inciters in Spencer Lenu and whatnot. And the referee goes to his bunker support saying, I need to find 2 players to sin bin.
Yeah.
That is actual game management of the game to try and keep it a contest instead of judging the process on its own merits.
And we'll come to that in a moment, because we are going to talk about that particular incident over the weekend, with the 4 going to the bin. But that decision that was made against the Eels captain's challenge, it's really important to note, because Mitchell Moses was so very, very clear in saying this is what we're challenging. We're challenging that it wasn't a strip. And if the Eels had retained that, moments later, you had the absurd call from the sideline from Belinda Sharp, when the referee had correctly ruled that the Cowboys player had lost control of the ball. And then he gets the late call from the sideline from Belinda Sharp, who, and I really want to, this is not a gender issue, because John and I are massive supporters.
I spent the last 72 hours ripping into Liam Kennedy. So
yeah. So,
we're equal opportunity haters when it comes to referees or critics, I suppose.
Yes. But look, Belinda Sharp has struggled this year with her calls. She's been getting things wrong. She got it very wrong in that instance. So very wrong. She would have been the only person in the stadium who saw it the way that she did. And when it came up on the screens and we saw just how badly wrong it was, the Eels didn't have that challenge left because it had been erroneously taken away from them before. So, and the Cowboys were able to get 2 points from that. And that could have been the difference, because the Eels in the end only won by 1 point. You don't know what that 2 points could have meant in the long run in that particular match. It was a huge call in the context of the game, a massive call. So, yeah, there's so much that's wrong with the way matches are being officiated. And then we get into the NRLW game. And I'm pretty sure the bloke in the bunker, Matt Noyens, had some issues with bunker calls in the past. But
don't look now about who's an official for our game this week.
Well, we had the instance, the two challenge calls. First of all, the Cowboys challenged successfully against the call of a lost ball, which was clearly a lost ball. And somehow Matt Noyen had said there was interference in the ruck that the Eels had caused.
It was a ball plant into the Eels not touching the ball, and they somehow found ruck interference. I don't understand.
Yes, a ball plant into not touching the ball. The Cowboys player just lost control of the ball. Then you saw Elsie Albert lose control of the ball, but when it went to the challenge, you could clearly see that she had not only a Cowboys player pushing her head down as she was trying to play the ball, but also one pushing her back down as well. So she had double interference in the ruck, but they just ruled that she lost control of the ball. It was Matt Noyen ruled that she'd lost control of the ball.
And he's been promoted to the NRL game in the bunker for us, mate. So he's moving up.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't look who's in the official capacity of that game. Yeah.
Now I'm sorry I said anything because I can feel the 60s jinx about the hit Top Gear.
Look, and Ryder was able to overcome your jinx on the weekend despite the nightmare start. So we're hoping that we can put it in the past there.
Yeah, and for for people unaware of the jinx that I can provide, I'm not allowed to bet on the Eels. When I say not allowed, I mean that's not an official ruling. It's
not the TAB or Sportsbet betting.
Begging me not to back the Eels, either individuals or as a team, because of the risks inherent in that. I put Gutherson out for the season. Let's just say when I backed Hayne to be the Dally M player of the season in 2018, I think we know where things headed in that year and afterwards. But if I give someone a big wrap, they'll either end up injured or they'll have a shocker. And let's just say I was giving Ryder quite a big wrap before the Flegg game. And I think everyone maybe saw what happened at the start of the game where he was passed the ball from the kickoff, lost control, and Melbourne scored within 30 seconds or whatever it was of the kickoff. And all I'll say is Yoko looked at me and said, "When are you ever going to learn?" And it was probably a true statement, but credit to Ryder. He put that behind him and he had an absolutely insane game after that. Just ripped into the Melbourne team, made a statement with his aggression. Got sent to the bin later in the game, but the job was done. He'd made his mark in that game. So, he did continue the good form. It's just a little blip on the radar. That's all it was. Not too much of a jinx. So, hopefully, no, I'm not going to take it back about Matt Noyen. I'm not, because when you get calls that bad, you can't take it back, John.
And the problem is that again, calling the game live, Liam Kelly had a bad game. Like, I'm not going to lie about that. He had a bad game. But calling the game live is so much harder than being in the bunker, having all the technology available to you, the luxury to be able to take your time and come to the correct conclusion without the pressure of calling it before the next play happens. And yet the bunker, whether it's Noyen, whether it's Klein, whether it's whoever, Casey Badger, it's not an individual, it is the entire group, consistently produce head-scratching results. And it is an absolute crapshoot when it goes up.
Well, let's look at it this way too. The end of that game, how Liam Kennedy thought that try passed muster and sent it up as a try. That defied.
That is such a catastrophic failure or misunderstanding of like one of the most core tenets of the game about obstruction. I mean, that failed multiple obstruction checks from the lead runner not running inside shoulder, running straight into the defender, from the ball carrier getting the ball on the inside shoulder and running behind. I mean, they're the two major pillars of what constitutes an obstruction. And he just said, no, they were fine.
Yeah, just straight point to the spot, and obviously got word very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really even from memory. He was barely walking back into position.
It was almost instantly pulled up. Yeah. There was not even time to set the kick.
It was Ashley Klein that got that quick word to him, like, look, hang on.
Yeah.
But we knew what it should have been, because at the ground you could see the Cowboys players. More than half of them weren't celebrating.
Yeah.
They had their head in their hands, because they knew they'd lost that at that moment, because they knew that try was not going to pass muster. They realised that was the end of the game. Like, it was an extraordinary thing to witness, because it started off with some Cowboys celebrating.
You can't call the integrity of an official into dispute in the post-match press conference, but you can do it for an opposing player. Todd Payton had a real crack at Mitchell Moses being a serial diver, and then walked back the comments about a minute later, sort of saying, "Oh no, like we got the player wrong," but there was no sanctions for that. Now, I don't mind a bit of banter, and I don't mind having a cheeky poke, but it is funny how there are inconsistent standards in that regard about, you know, talking about the integrity of a competitive integrity of a player of the opposition versus an official.
Well, look, if he hadn't said it, we wouldn't have got the content.
the roasting, yeah. And look, it is very much in form for Todd Payton, isn't it, to try and turn the microscope away from their own inadequacies. And look, and this is when I talk about I want Jason Ryles to have a crack at the officials now and then, I specifically cited Todd Payton and Ricky Stewart as the two coaches I didn't want them to be or turn into. There is a difference between a strategic bake of the officials and then being someone like Todd Payton, who will consistently turn away from his own team's issues to try and highlight problems, whether it's real or not, with the officials to, you know, probably save his own bacon.
Now, I know the Cowboys have had a couple of injuries for this year, but they have a roster that is full of state of origin players.
Yeah.
How they're sitting where they are.
With the home field advantage that you get from Townsville too. One of the worst places to travel as an opposing team, regardless of the time of year, the tropical humidity and the heat, just put you so far outside of your comfort zone if you're not the home team.
Does he go into next year? Will he still have the job going into next year?
I tend to err on the pragmatic side of things, and if I was a Cowboys administrator, I would say no. But who's their replacement? Because you're going to have a competitive coaching market, theoretically. Manly could be moving on. Titans are moving on, I assume. Newcastle could be moving on. It's a lot of competition.
There's only so many rides on the merry-go-round too for some of the coaches, surely. I mean, Todd Payton will probably get a gig elsewhere because he's relatively young and has just, in one sense, the Warriors' job was barely an apprenticeship.
Yeah, Jamie's saying that Hane's been linked. I do agree. Well, I have seen some of those tendrils connecting him. Hane, obviously the other primary candidate for the Parramatta Eels prior to Jason Ryles being appointed. I got a bit of time for Hane. I think he's got a pretty good attacking mind. Obviously, Jason Ryles ended up being a superb appointment for the Parramatta Eels, so I'm not crying about potential spilt milk there. But if it is Hane, again, you need to get ahead of the curve now. You need to stop other clubs from getting a jump on you. You need to give executive control when you coach to start shaping that roster, because the preseason, us bottom 8 or bottom 9 teams, our seasons are wrapping up in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is. Like, you need to have a handle on what you're doing in the postseason, the preseason for next year. You need to have. There are so many logistical things that go into it: getting your own staff, booking things. If you're going to do camps, you need to get ahead of the scheduling for a camp somewhere else. There is a lot that goes into a preseason, and you can't just have a new coach come in at the very end of the year and say, "Yeah, you'll be sweet for next year. Get going."
Yeah. So, John, I said we were going to get onto that crazy Roosters and Dolphins game at the Ford of the Bin. So let's hit that now. You talked about the game management that the referee was seemed to be.
That has to be a mandate from referee HQ, they are so scared to have asymmetrical sin binnings when there is a group fracas where one team clearly infringes more than the others, and they will almost always err on the side of bin one player from both teams, bin two players from both teams, as we saw on the weekend, instead of judging an incident on its own merits and saying, well, clearly Spencer Leniu was the primary instigator and everything happened as a result of him. Let's put him in the bin and then not punish everyone else and not try and make it fair, again, fair inverted commas for the Roosters, because they were the primary, instigators.
Well, what about the days of Bill Harrigan sending 3 Eels players to the bin inside the same 10 minutes and then following up with a 4th sin bin later in the game when the Eels were beaten by Newcastle? And it literally took for the Eels to end up down to 10 players before the Knights were able to score. That was one of the more diabolical uses of the sin bin that I've ever seen, because he, on that night, well, let's just say Billy Harrigan was rested for a week or so after that particular performance, because he was sending players in for slow play balls that didn't
Hollywood
exist.
often cited as the gold standard for refereeing, and by and large, his career was outstanding. But he certainly had those moments in him, didn't he, Craig, where he got it was the Bill Harrigan show, not the NRL show.
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, it's as you said, they don't like the asymmetrical sin bin situation.
No.
And where it should have been 2 players from one team, it became 2 players from 2 teams. And there was a bit of discussion about it on 360 tonight, and it was around, well, what are you supposed to do if Spencer Leniu, Spenny Lenny, comes up to you, put your dukes up, I'm coming for you. Are you supposed to stand there and just let him throw one?
Like most players, you'd be like, yeah, he's not going to, like, he's front and he's not going to do anything. Spencer Leniu legitimately sees the red mist. Like, I would not be shocked if he tried to drop someone at some point with a straight, big cross or a right straight or something. What do you do in that situation? You certainly have a right to defend yourself, I would argue, and you should not be punished for being in a defensive position, knowing that Spencer Leniu, of all players, has got blood in his eyes and wants to deck you. So, yeah. And the other thing that came out of that segment was that apparently it polled phenomenally with Buzz Rothfield on social media. Fans loved it. They wanted the drama. They wanted the fracas. That doesn't surprise me. People love, blood sports is a very, very long bow to draw from that, but people love the drama, the excitement of a melee, of a potential fight. So I don't think you can incorporate into your game a la hockey and have, goons and, because that is a natural progression. If you allow fighting in some capacity, you start getting goons. The bodyguards, the guys that are just there to be physical enforcers, to brawl and take out the opposition best players. Again, more officiating issues with the asymmetrical, or the refusal to have asymmetrical calls, despite the incident clearly pointing towards one team infringing more than the others. And the fact that, again, the footage is there I'm paraphrasing, but it's along the lines of, find me 2 players to put in the bin.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you say, let's look at the incident and see who needs to be binned, instead of saying, find me 2 players, which lines up with the 2 players that he was going to bin from the Roosters.
Yeah. It's, what it harkens back to, it feels similar to, is as a teacher, if you had a kid that had to stay in at lunchtime, you're going to find some more kids to keep in with them. It's someone's going to luck out. Someone's going to luck out.
Imagine if they had to spend the sin bin in the same room together. There would be actual brawls going on.
Now, John, we move on. And Shane Flanagan has extended his coaching contract by 2 years at the Dragons. So he goes through to the end of 2028. Not really a surprise, given that the Dragons have gone okay this season, you can see that there is a progression that's happening for them. I'm not a Shane Flanagan fan as in terms of his coaching. He's not someone.
He blurs lines that I'm pretty uncomfortable with crossing, given what we saw at Cronulla. Obviously gets results. The Dragons look like a Shane Flanagan team, though. They're gritty, they're tough, love to drag you down to their level and get into a real brawl. I will say that obviously it's not just his work, because the kids are coming through as a result of the last couple of coaches, but you've got the likes of Lycan King Togia. We saw on the weekend Jacob Hallengar, who make his debut. There's a couple of young forwards that are injured as well that I know were fantasy studs that people were very disappointed to see go down. Loco Pacifici Tonga is another big one too. Absolute big lump in the front row. So they've got more than a couple of really good young prospects in the team. They've got some senior citizens too, but they are competitive. They've had some good results. I can understand why the Dragons made the move to re-sign him. Like you said, don't have to like or agree with his methodology, and you can certainly be critical of it from an ethical standpoint, given in the past. But the Dragons have been competitive, and the question is, can they go from being competitive, annoying bottom nine ankle biters to being a legitimate premiership force? That's a big question mark, because they've got a huge gap at halfback. Kyle Flanagan is not the guy that's going to take him to a premiership, regardless of where you stand on the nepotism and whatever argument. I just don't think from a talent standpoint Kyle Flanagan is good enough to get you to a premiership. But they've got some good pieces there. I don't know. I would say it's a sensible bit of business, but I don't know if it's a premiership winning bit of business.
John, a good mate of ours, Bernie Gurr, when he's been on the podcast, and he spoke about Shane Flanagan, and he said that the Dragons were basically a year behind the Bulldogs because of the length of tenure of the coaches in teams that are going through a rebuild. And he saw lots that he liked about the Dragons in their first year under Flanagan, and no doubt Bernie would probably be seeing continued growth under him this season. So, look, I think where it will be interesting next year, John, is that for the Dragons, is that they had, as you mentioned, a couple of senior citizen players that are in their team. The other thing is too, I think to an extent, maybe they haven't been as respected as they should have been by some of their opponents, because the fact that they got away with beating the Raiders, and I think they have beaten the Storm as well this season. Those teams don't get beaten by teams that are down the bottom of the ladder. They're not that sort of team, especially the Storm. So you go, well, how have they lost this game? And I would say that in those instances that the Dragons played well, and those teams were prepared for a certain level of contest that was maybe taking their opponent a little bit for granted. Not saying that they believed they weren't going to have to do enough to get the win, but I think their intensity was missing in those contests. They didn't see it as a big time contest that they might have seen with other opponents. So whether that translates next season, I think the higher the Dragons finish this year, the more seriously they'll be taken next year. And then it'll be interesting to see how, as I said, how those senior citizens back up for another year in the NRL. And then on top of that, how well they go in the player market, whether they attract anyone else that's
they're one of the clubs. I don't know how serious the news link is, but they've apparently put their hat into the ring for a player we're going to talk about at the end of the podcast. Alongside, I've seen the Canterbury Bulldogs linked to this player too, which would be audacious to say the least.
Yeah. Now, I'm just going to touch very quickly on the next bit of news, but Seve playing in goggles for the rest of his career.
Yeah, I mean, brave. Not from a fashion standpoint. I don't really care about that. Anytime you've got an eye condition and you're risking your eyes is always a very brave cause, isn't it, Craig? And the big old sports goggles look like the tool shed goggles, don't they? I was sharing memes this afternoon about it with some mates, and I found the old dodgeball movie with the sport guy that had the sports goggles on. It's a bit like that, but yeah. Yes, I've seen it in the NBA. I've seen it in, I think, baseball too. Every now and then there's someone that's got eye condition, short-term or long-term, and they're required to have some pretty meaty protection. Yeah.
But in the physical contact of the NRL,
it is on a completely different level. You'd like to think that there's not going to be any shitty gamesmanship with people trying to manipulate the goggles and take them off.
There will probably be. I would imagine someone's going to rip it. I mean, it feels like it's going to be pretty easy for them to come off anyway. The head's not necessarily a target point, but it's just the nature of the game that the head ends up in places and, cops a little bit of a massage in different circumstances. So
I'm not sure what the full nature of the injury is, what he's been trying to be preventive of, but yeah, if it's like straight up contact of the eyes, then geez, all it takes is one arsehole in a ruck to slip the fingers under the goggles and rub the eyes. So it's a good story if he stays healthy. It's also a reminder that a lot of his guys don't really know much in rugby league, don't they? Like,
yeah.
Maybe he's not in a position to step away from the game, and even though he's not a frontline first grader at the moment, this is obviously the breadwinning aspect of his life. So I do wish him the best.
John, excuse me. Next on our agenda, can the Broncos overcome losing from one game? Ezra Mam, Reynolds.
Both their playmakers in one play. I've never seen anything like that. The sniper got 2 bullets in the chamber in that one. And the funny part is that Adam Reynolds looked like he'd torn his hamstring off the bone. He's the one that's due back sooner rather than later compared to the other guys. Cobbo and Mam are out for a pretty hefty stint on the sidelines. I think Reynolds is 3 to 4 weeks, but liable to probably do it again as soon as he gets back, which was always a concern when you re-sign someone like Reynolds, isn't it? Much like Cody Walker at South Sydney, the injuries really add up so quickly at that age. Their bodies are betraying them. Can they... They'll probably make the finals, right? They're in a really good position to make the finals. I think they're fodder in the finals, the way things are right now. They've rolled out Ben Hunt and Billy Walters, right?
Walters
this week, yeah. And that's I suppose a functional halves pairing. Ben Hunt, it hasn't really been spoken about. Ben Hunt's best football is way behind him this year too. He has not been a plus acquisition for the Broncos. He's been a functional first grader, but he has not played the sort of football we're so accustomed to him from years, whether it's been at halfback or dummy half. So, yeah, they'll make the finals. Maybe they can jag a week 1 victory depending on the matchup if they're in the bottom half of the bracket. But they feel like fodder against any of the big dogs in this competition right now.
Yeah, I would agree. And finally, John, the name that keeps being associated with the Eels, and you mentioned there's maybe another club interested in him. That's Tino Fasuamala-Awi. He's back for the Titans this week, but he's also indicated that he is going to check out what the open market has.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The Perth Bears are, again, nothing's official, although you can have unofficial deals, I suppose. There's been rumours that the Bears are willing to make him the highest paid player in the NRL, be the face of that franchise, the cornerstone of that budding franchise. I think that's a pretty obvious recruitment target for them, isn't it? But there is a break point between getting, being mega paid as the highest paid player in the NRL and still getting paid absolute bank and being in a team that can contend. And that might not be Parramatta, it might be Parramatta. But if the Bulldogs can somehow scrounge up the funds and the investment in pub shares to convince them to go there, that'd be a great destination too. I don't know if the media is having a pull the leg of that one. If the Dogs are legitimately in on Tino Fa'asuamala-Awi, then just scrap this. Like, abandon all pretenses, abandon the salary cap. Just stop it. Like, let's not kid around anymore. I've seen the Dragons linked. There was a rumor on Triple M that South Sydney want both David Fifita and Tino Fa'asuamaleaui. That can't happen. That just can't happen. They haven't got the cap space for that. But yeah, if he is going to test the markets, you can bet your bottom dollar the Eels will put in an official bid. They will absolutely have a competitive offer. I think they're going to have a clear vision for him to be the missing piece for the Parramatta Eels to become legitimate premiership contenders in 26, 27 and beyond. And they will try and sell him on that vision. Whether that's going to be enough to sway him from competitive offers from the likes of the teams we just mentioned. I'm sure there's going to be some teams we haven't mentioned who'll be in on him too. Almost every club will check in on Tino Fa'asuamaleaui.
Yeah.
He's that good that at that prime age bracket that he would elevate all 17 clubs or eventual 20 clubs whenever we get there. So, yeah, plenty of clubs to be checking in. Parramatta will be among them. You can bet your bottom dollar on it. And the question will be, Riles has a connection there. He obviously has a strong connection there. The Eels, I think, are putting together a relatively compelling package in their progress on the field. Is that enough to beat out the likes of established contenders? Is that enough to beat out the likes of the bigger dollar offers that are going to come from elsewhere? I don't know. It's going to dominate the headlines for until it's resolved. Be the biggest story in rugby league, pretty much.
Yeah, the question mark in terms of the Eels as a destination point is solved by on-field performance, because right now, as things stand at the club, is you've got a team that has the biggest following in Sydney in terms of like membership. Now the Bulldogs will argue because of the crowd surge this year, but the Eels have consistently been the highest membership and the highest number that identify as supporters of a club in Sydney. The Eels, as I said, have peaked in terms of membership over the rest of the Sydney-based NRL clubs. The Eels have a centre of excellence that is now one of the most enviable centres of excellence that exist in the NRL. It is the largest centre of excellence that exists. It's got 5 fields, for goodness sake, and including a match field there, which we're now seeing the lower grade matches played on. So the facilities there are first class, they're world class facilities. So it then comes down to, you've got a stable club with that are a high profile media club on top of everything else, massive fan base, financials in top-notch order, play out of one of the premier stadiums in rugby league, in Combank Stadium, have a centre of excellence. So what's missing in terms of getting the players? It's coming into a team which is a chance of winning the premiership. So,
and I suppose in that sense, there's a lot to play for with the Parramatta Eels in the remaining 4 games. They're building a resume for recruitment. And enhancing the vision that Jason Riles is trying to sell to not just Tino Fa'asuamaleaui, but if there are other roster boards that the Eels juggling right now and the players that we've got on loan and a couple other players, obviously, that we're sort of, and Bailey Simonson and whatnot that we're dealing with, there could be another player or two, maybe not superstars, maybe not stars, but maybe competent first-grade players that you're going to be battling for the services they're signing, that it all becomes one big cohesive package. And yeah, the Eels are putting together a really good season. Relatively speaking, with some pretty important caveats, a good season. And you can see it reflected in the media coverage of the Parramatta Eels right now. There has been a distinct change in the tone and the tune of how the Eels are being covered in the media, the respect of which Jason Riles has been spoken about far and wide across multiple different platforms, from proven identities in the game, from some of the players that are starting to get their flowers as well. I mean, Mitch Moses, we know, broke out last year in State of Origin. He's now, the way he's spoken about, it's in rarefied air in the context of NRL playmakers. And even considering that he's going to be in the back end of his career in the coming years. We've seen playmakers play better and better, longer and longer these days. So no one's doubting that he's still got plenty of juice left in the tank. So yeah, whether it's Tino, whether it's someone else, and obviously Tino was the focus this aspect of his segment. The Eels, it's important they get results moving forwards this year because it all adds up.
And John, let's just ask, how many wins do you think we'll get out of the last 4 games?
I was looking at this, and it's funny how your opinions on the draw can change so much week to week, month to month, right? And I look at that now. Rabbitohs is an eminently winnable game. The Roosters obviously a tough game, but they're playing. Who are they playing this week? They've got a top 8 clash, haven't they? I know it's Melbourne versus Penrith. Roosters versus Bulldogs. So that's a big tough one there. That could have them bruised a bit. Warriors are sliding, but it is in Auckland, so that's a tough one. And Newcastle, I'd like to think we beat Newcastle. So I look at that and I say Rabbitohs and Knights we should beat. And then maybe you can split one of those 2 games against the Roosters and the Warriors. I think 3 wins should be your goal. Obviously you want 4, but I think 3 wins should be where you set the line.
And I'll throw that question to the chat about how many wins people think the Eels are likely to get before the end of the season. So, John, where do you think that would roughly leave us on the ladder if we were to jag 2 to 3 wins?
So 3 wins elevates us to 10 wins on the season, so 26 points with the 3 buys, but you should be judging your season on the wins, not the buys. 10 wins puts you theoretically 10th or 11th, depending on results with the Dragons and the Tigers. And maybe, or like depending again with the guys at the fringe of the 8, we're not mathematically eliminated, but you're realistically not making the 8. But you'd be on the cusp of the top 8. So I think that is an important metric for the team internally, for their own psyche and their own emotional sort of development, as well as that recruitment package we're talking about. And that's why I see it in chat. We've got 3 from Michael, 2, Ben saying 2 minimum. Mike Fleet saying 3 or 4. I think the Roosters is going to be the tough one. Same with Carl, 3, but the Roosters are the tough game. Chris Hill wants all 4. I respect that call. I like it.
And then mathematically possible top 8.
If you win all 4, and I don't know what results you need to go your way. I'm sure there's a finals calculator out there. Yes, but there was a how high or low can they go post on Reddit this week, and the Eels can finish as high as 7th still. So, I mean, that would be pretty ridiculous. But, let's focus on getting 3. I think 3 wins is a really nice point there. And that seems to be the consensus, Jack. Kicks 3. Galga saying that 10th would be our ceiling in that situation. Rob saying 3. Peter saying 3. Yeah, I think that looking at that schedule and looking at how you've got probably the Roosters being the most difficult challenge there, and the Warriors, who are in a real rut right now. They've got a lot of injuries to key players, and they face the risk of sliding out of the finals, actually, which would be kind of crazy considering how well they were going for most of the year. But yeah, I think 3 wins is where you set it at, and I do like the energy of saying go for all 4, Chris. I think that's look, Jason Riles will be saying we can win all 4. Looking at how our prolonged run of form is now, and how we had our moments against the negative moments against the Cowboys and still found a way to win, that would 100% be believing that all 4 are winnable at this point.
Yeah, right at the start of the year, John, I said that it was a pretty wide range where I thought the Eels could finish somewhere between 6th and 12th. And I think they're going to end up finishing somewhere between 6th and 12th.
It's funny, it was all the issues we've had and the lowest of lows of the injuries and suspensions. I think if we get into 10th, Galga saying Riles gets a solid B+ in that regard. I don't think that's an unfair measurement. I mean, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people saying no, A+. I think B+ is a pretty good floor for Jason Riles' measurement on that first season. If you get into that,
well, where does it leave you for growth if you're getting an A+ for finishing?
Exactly. Maybe you can have like some kind of scalar where you say, relative to the difficulty of the situation, it's an A, but overall it's a B+. Because the degree of difficulty this year for Jason Riles for rookie coach was right up there. But yeah, we were both in agreement that sort of, I know it's a wide window, but like you said, from 6th to 12th, it was it just felt like that kind of season coming in. If anything, we've been vindicated in our beliefs about how even the playing field was this year, because right now the Eels are still on the hunt, mathematically still in the mix for the finals. which means that you've got 13 of your teams. I don't know if the Cowboys still are after that loss. Let's say they are, because they the Cowboys would be. 14 teams still in the mix of the finals, which is crazy.
Yeah. Well, as you said, it speaks to the evenness of the majority of the teams. But John, that just about brings us to the conclusion of the main part of the podcast. Have we got any questions from the gallery?
Yes. Josh saying, I think we've built nicely for the future, but if you don't make the 8, again, this would be for next year, wouldn't it, Josh? You're not expecting the 8 there. It's got to be a fail. Look, expectations are going to obviously be adjusted heading into next year, and you're not going to be quick to crack the whip on Jason Rolls, but the 8 would be the standard for next year for sure. Hey, Dave, Mr. Arlaw's in chat. Good to see you having a good week. Hopefully River's doing very good. Good to have you on board again. Michael saying that after round 2 he was near certain we will get the spoon. That goes hand in hand with another comment I saw from Gallagher saying Moses missed more than half the season. The Eels have done it very tough with the injuries, but injuries are the key players too. So and Gallagher's also pushing for Jake Averillo as a must if Simonson's not going to be here. I'm on board with Jake Averillo. I like Jake Averillo. I think adds a lot of speed and flexibility to your back line. And probably looks like the odd man out the Dolphins. Given they just keep signing outside backs. Ben's got a question for you, Craig, and I know you haven't been in the best capacity to comment on this, but he says, has Gasnier been cited at all at training? Obviously, we brought in Mark Gasnier as a specialist consultant.
Yeah, as you're aware, I have not been as regular at training over the last few months due to personal circumstances. However, there was a session that I got to during that time where he was present. And so I'm talking about in the last month or so. But because I haven't been able to get to every session during a week, and in fact, there's many weeks I haven't been to any sessions, I couldn't really comment. But he has been there during the season proper. So I will say that. I have seen him there in the season.
He has been the forgotten man in the coaching staff, hasn't he? Because we always talk about Scott Wisemantle, Sam Moa, Nathan Brown, and obviously the big man himself, Jason Rolls. But I always liked Mark.
I've seen him as like prior to me not being able to get to training. I would have said that I saw him far more during the pre-season than I did during the season proper. So I guess what I would say is that he's obviously still available, but probably when all was said and done, you'd see him as much as I've seen other specialist coaches in the past. And I don't know whether he then has different times that he might turn up. Maybe he's not there for a field session. Maybe he's there for working with individuals at specific times rather than working as part of the field session and having them trying to fit in something that he does as part of that, or whether he comes and he works like Joey Johns used to do, where he'd take players out. And Joey Johns, during his time with the Eels, just to give us an example, he'd be working with the spine on a particular field, and on that same day you'd see while he's working with them, the forwards might be out on the field doing some specialist coaching stuff, or the backs might be doing something, but he'd have that group of spine players at the same time as others were split up and doing their specialised roles. So I don't know whether that's occurred this year. I haven't spoken to the coaches about that. So,
Speaking of guest appearances at training, Chris Hill says that Heine's been popping up at training in the last couple of weeks. So we know that Jason Rolls has been reintegrating a lot of those former players into the fabric there at Parramatta, and obviously Heine, who has been far more receptive to the Parramatta Eels on the Matty John show this year, I suppose, feeling a bit more welcome there. We've got a question from Gallagher saying, is Arpa Twiddle in our top 30 next season? I'm not sure. I'm just trying to
don't believe.
No?
I don't think he is.
Yeah, so I think he's contracted, right? But I believe he's contracted, but I don't think it's scaling into the NRL. Peter Z says Jason Ryall's daughter is a ball girl, future NRLW star, and that is the coolest part of it. One of the cool parts about the proper pathways we have now is that you can see ball girls like that, and they can aspire to playing first grade and representative football.
Yep.
So really cool there. If she's anything like a chip off the old block, she's going to be a hell of a forward. Jason Ross. I don't know if you saw that picture of him with Brad Fittler and Joey Johns. He towered over them. Big unit, Jason Ross. So no pressure on our young Riles there. Ben Johnson says, would Cronk be open as a specialist considering he's moving on from the Roosters? I don't know. That Jason Riles would have a connection to Cooper Cronk, so he'd probably kick the tires in that one. Cooper, for all his struggles in live broadcasting, and the difference between Cooper Cronk on a podcast and Cooper Cronk on Fox Live is very stark. Obviously a very sharp mind. I'd certainly be open to bringing him on board just to maybe find a few wrinkles and sort of additions that he could bring to the Jason Ryall's attacking system or the Scott Wisemantle attacking system, however you want to badge it.
Nathan Brown attacking system.
Nathan Brown, yeah, you got that there too. I'm sure Mark Gaznia would want to have a little hyphenated Gaznia attached to that as well. But we've got Josh saying Cooper's moving on because he said he doesn't have time for it with his media role as well as his roles with the Storm. So that is probably an answer to that one. Nip it in the bud. He is a very busy man. What else we got? Oh, we didn't talk about this. I sort of tangentially from a comment there. There was I don't know if you saw it, Craig, but there's been I say minor furore. It should be a much more serious topic. There's been a bit of backlash against Melbourne Storm for their antics in parading out their stolen trophies. They wheeled it out against us last year, I believe, the 09 Premiership. Almost, spitting in the face of the NRL, daring them to do something, and the NRL, being the cowards they are, refused to sanction the Melbourne Storm, which I think is a disgrace. They already got to celebrate those titles. They should have no right to parade out their stripped premierships. And it's, frankly, pure cowardice from the NRL not to sanction the club on it.
Strong words, John. I can't disagree.
We'll take a couple of last questions here. Chris Hill, good question. Who goes on the Kangaroo Tour from Parra, do you think? Look, I know people will be upset about this, but I got to think Mitchell Moses is a front runner. There is so much momentum with his representative career right now. The way you hear people speak about his game, I think if they're being fair dinkum, the Roos take 3 halves and maybe a 4th utility in someone like Ethan Strange, a young development prospect, and you reward him for the season he's having. But I think that fair dinkum, their first 3 halves, they should pick Nathan Cleary, which is unfortunate. He's going to get picked, even if he struggles representing football. Tom Dearden, who is the best young half in the game, and then Mitchell Moses. If we're being fair dinkum and pragmatic, I think that Cam Munster, Daly Cherry Evans, those players should make the tour. But Cam Munster probably makes the tour.
Yeah, look, I think Mitch Moses will probably go. Eels fans won't be happy about that. What they have to understand is that Mitch Moses has been a late bloomer in terms of representative football. We can't expect him to decline representative honours.
Not for an Ashes tour too, the first time in over 2 decades. So there is a lot of prestige attached to this particular international series. Beyond that, unfortunately, I can't see the Eels featuring too heavily. There's too many established state of origin stars, and I think the likes of the Canberra Raiders will probably hog a few of the development spots that they tend to give out there with guys like Ethan Strange. Zach Lomax, obviously. I can't believe it.
Zach Lomax, obviously. John, I'm going to have to wrap things up myself here.
That works out perfectly, guys.
So, look, thank you to everyone that's been there in chat this evening. All that input really makes for the podcast. We enjoy doing the podcast so much more now that we go live, and we go live with chat, and we get that sort of input, and we get the topics to talk about that are interesting the people that are our audience, because we will go in with our run sheet about what we're going to talk about, and then we end up fielding these sorts of questions that we do during the podcast, and it means a lot to us. Keep coming and saying g'day to us when you see us out at the games, either at lower grades or at the NRL or at the club. There's not a week that goes by where we don't have multiple people come and introduce themselves to us, and we really love it. Thank you to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and to Parra Leagues, the home of the Eels, for their the continued sponsorship of both of those organisations. It is much appreciated. We seriously couldn't do what we do without that. Don't forget, no matter what platform you're watching or listening to this on, give it a like and subscribe. It's really important to us, and we appreciate that support. And if you want to go that step further and get behind us on Patreon, we really appreciate that as well. John, thank you for another fine podcast. And as I always say, go you mighty Eels.